This is a live dynamic right now in the Republican Party in way more places than you would think. Here, for example, is the AP headline on the Republicans' U.S. Senate candidate in Pennsylvania. David McCormick is gearing up for a Senate run in Pennsylvania, but he lives in Connecticut. That seems bad. I mean, if you think about a Pennsylvania Senate race, right, you will recall it wasn't that long ago that Republicans lost a shot at a winnable U.S. Senate seat last time around, last election cycle, when they ran Republican candidate Mehmet Oz, right? Republicans ran Mehmet Oz, Dr. Oz, for that seat in Pennsylvania, and Democrats needled him relentlessly about the fact that he kind of lived in New Jersey. And so what's he doing running in Pennsylvania? Well, now the Republicans are going to try again in Pennsylvania, except this time they're running a guy who lives in Connecticut, to try to maybe head off the same thing happening again, like what happened with Dr. Mehmet Oz. They have developed a backstory for their candidate this time around, who lives in Connecticut. They've decided that he's going to describe himself as someone who started with nothing, who grew up on a family farm in Pennsylvania. Did he start with nothing? Did he grow up on a family farm in Pennsylvania? What do you think? Quote, Mr. McCormick has explicitly said that he grew up on a farm. He claimed that he had, quote, started with nothing, and that he, quote, didn't have anything. He and his campaign have recently described his parents as school teachers. In fact, Mr. McCormick is the son of a well-regarded college president who later became chancellor of higher education systems in Pennsylvania and in Minnesota. David McCormick largely grew up at what is now Bloomsburg University in the president's sprawling hilltop residence, which students called the President's Mansion. Or he started with nothing and grew up on a family farm. So in Wisconsin, Republicans are running a Selena Meyer understudy who is from California, whose bank is being sued for elder abuse and who says don't let people in nursing homes vote. In Pennsylvania, Republicans are running a guy who lives in Connecticut, who grew up in a literal president's mansion and says it was a family farm where he was so poor. But wait, there's more. In Montana, Republicans really want to take the U.S. Senate seat there that is currently held by popular Democratic Senator Jon Tester. One of the things that makes Jon Tester really popular in a largely rural state like Montana is that Senator Tester is, for real, a real farmer, drives the tractor and everything. Republicans have decided to run someone against Senator Jon Tester in Montana, who is a person from Minnesota, who grew up in the suburbs of St. Paul. Since he has been running against Jon Tester, though, he has made a big deal of saying that he grew up near farmland. Turns out there was maybe farmland near the multi-million-dollar lake house he grew up in suburban St. Paul. So that's pretty much just like being a farmer. This follows another quite unusual controversy for this Montana Senate candidate, in which he either dropped a loaded gun in a parking lot at Glacier National Park, and the gun went off when it hit the ground, and he thereby shot himself in the arm, or he didn't really shoot himself in the arm by dropping a gun in the parking lot at Glacier National Park, but he nevertheless went to the hospital anyway. And while he did tell a U.S. park ranger that he dropped a gun in that parking lot and shot himself that day, he was actually lying about that to the ranger because really he was trying to conceal the secret truth that he had an unreported war wound that he didn't want anybody to know about. But whatever happened, it was definitely near farmland. There was very near. You could smell it nearby in the vicinity. Can I tell you, there's another one, Michigan. In Michigan, Republicans are thrilled that Democratic U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow is retiring in that state. They would love to take that Senate seat in Michigan. And so, cue the headlines out of Michigan. Quote, Michigan Republican candidate caught living in Florida. This is about Republican Michigan U.S. Senate candidate Mike Rogers. His name is Mike Rogers. This confluence of where he lives and his name led the Michigan Advance to build the perfect headline for this story, which is, quote, where is Mr. Rogers' neighborhood? Mike Rogers, again, wants to be the senator from Michigan, but he does appear to be registered to vote in Florida at his very nice house in Cape Coral, Florida, where he is registered with the Republican Party of Florida, voter status active. Where is Mr. Rogers' neighborhood indeed? In Arizona, the Senate seat there is another one that Republicans would absolutely love to pick up with Kyrsten Sinema retiring. The Republican Senate candidate in Arizona, Kari Lake, she does appear to live in Arizona, which is a big plus for this crop of Republican Senate candidates. Kind of a notable distinction, in fact. But in the case of Arizona, you're going to need more than that. Because this, for example, is the new ad that the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee just put out on Kari Lake as a Senate candidate in Arizona and the issue of abortion rights in that state.
I'm incredibly thrilled that we are going to have a great law that's already on the books. I believe it's ARS 133603. So it will prohibit abortion in Arizona, paving the way and setting course for other states to follow.
This law passed. The Arizona Supreme Court said this is the law of Arizona. But unfortunately, the people running our state have said we're not going to enforce it. So it's really political theater. We don't have that law as much as many of us wish we did.
She's not enforcing the law. So we don't have that law. The only people who can enforce that law are our sheriffs. And we need to start asking the sheriffs if they're willing to enforce that.
I haven't changed, actually, no.
Kari Lake is the Republican Party's best idea of who they should run for the United States Senate seat that they really want to take this year in Arizona. But, I mean, clock the context, the specifics that she was offering there in that clip. She wants individual sheriffs in Arizona to start enforcing the state's 1864 abortion ban. Sheriffs and sheriff deputies. Get out there. Get to it. Get out on the streets. Find out who's pregnant. We want the sheriffs enforcing this. Watch when you cross county lines.